Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Centre, and thank you for attending the Shaw Prize Award Presentation Ceremony 2019. I am Dudu Chen, your presenter for this evening.
Good evening. I'm Leon Ko. Thank you for your presence to witness the outstanding achievements of the laureates.
The Shaw Prize is an international award established under the auspices of Mr. Run Run Shaw. The prize is dedicated to honor scientists who have recently achieved significant breakthroughs in academic and scientific research or applications, and whose work has resulted in a positive and profound impact on mankind.
The Shaw Prize consists of 3 categories, namely the Shaw Prize in Astronomy, the Shaw Prize in Life Science and Medicine, as well as the Shaw Prize in Mathematical Sciences. The prize will be granted to individuals regardless of race, nationality, gender, and religious belief.
Every year, members of the selection committees and the Board of Adjudicators have contributed with their professional knowledge and enthusiasm for science to ensure that the selection and adjudication process are of the highest standard.
Nomination commenced in September last year, followed by adjudication. The results of the Shaw Prize 2019 were announced at the press conference held on the 21st of May this year. 3 Shaw laureates have been awarded the prize, and tonight they are here to receive the honor.
It is time for the commencement of the Shaw Prize Award Presentation Ceremony 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise to welcome our officiating guest, the Honourable Mrs. Carrie Lam, Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China. Mrs. Lam, please.
We now invite the 3 Shaw laureates to enter the presentation hall. First, please welcome the Shaw Laureate in Astronomy 2019, Professor Edward C. Stone, please.
We now welcome the Shaw Laureate in Life Science and Medicine 2019, Professor Maria Jasin, please.
Last but not least, let us welcome the Shaw Laureate in Mathematical Sciences 2019, Dr. Michel Talagrand, please. May we invite the Chairman of the Board of Adjudicators, Professor Frank H. Hsu, to deliver a speech, please.
Welcome to the 16th Annual Shaw Prize Awards Presentation Ceremony. The Shaw Prize was established in 2002 to honor international scientists in the fields of astronomy, life science and medicine, and mathematical sciences. The inaugural Shaw Prize Award ceremony took place in 2004. In the Shaw Prize, Sir Run Run Shaw and Mrs. Mona Shaw created a towering structure of entrepreneurship and philanthropy, celebrating the quest for knowledge and highlighting outstanding scientific achievements. They have passed on, but their legacy shines ever brighter. Their example of fortitude, dedication, and energy continue to inspire their fellow council members in sustaining the Shaw Prize. Future generations will, under the direction of the Shaw Prize Foundation, continue to broaden the Shaw vision of advancing knowledge through scientific discoveries, thus strengthening and enhancing the aims of the Shaw Prize. Those of us who have been involved in the enterprise are committed to carry on the Shaw's great vision. Tonight, we honor 3 scientists in the designated fields for their distinguished contributions. They are Professor Edward Stone in astronomy, Professor Maria Jasin in life science and medicine, and Professor Michel Talagrand in mathematical sciences. I think now the chairs of the selection committee will introduce these.
Thank you, Professor Schum. Please take your seat.
We now invite the chairman of the selection committee for the Shaw Prize in Astronomy, Professor Reinhard Genzel, to deliver a speech. Professor Genzel, please.
Thank you. Governor, laureates, honorables, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to announce the selection of the 2019 Shaw Prize in Astronomy. You see, one of the long-standing dreams of humanity has been to explore our solar system by space travel. You may recall that in his 1865 novel, De la Terre à la Lune, Jules Verne told the story of members of a Baltimore gun club building a huge cannon to shoot a projectile with 3 of the club's members aboard for a trip to and landing on the moon. 100 years later, the US-Soviet space race, by itself, of course, not very peaceful, however, turned this dream into reality by developing the necessary technology and providing the resources for such ambitious endeavors. And one of the great highlights of this period, for those of you who've been there and are old enough, was, of course, the manned lunar landing in 1969 of Apollo 11. Now, to keep this dream forward, the more distant solar system targets required unmanned missions. Among these, the Voyager missions stood out as a seminal success. Voyager consisted of 2 spacecraft launched in August and September in 1977 to undertake a grand tour of the outer solar system. Both spacecraft flew past Jupiter, Saturn, in the period 79 and 81. Then they departed their different ways. Voyager 2 visited Uranus in 1986 and Neptune in 1989. Voyager's beautiful high-resolution images of the outer solar system, planets and their moons, fascinated all of humanity. All of humanity. Voyager opened fascinating and sometimes strange vistas of new worlds. The erupting volcanoes, for instance, of Jupiter's satellite Io, powered by tidal heating of its interior. The rings of Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune, with intricate structures, including gaps and narrow ringlets, spokes, waves, and so forth. The complex structure of the magnetic fields and magnetospheres of the planets Uranus and Neptune. And then the atmospheres of Saturn's enigmatic satellite Titan and Neptune's satellite Triton. Fast winds, vast storm structures, just as the great spots in Jupiter and Neptune. Voyager dramatically improved our knowledge of the masses and the sizes and the shapes of the giant planets and their outer satellites. 42 years later, 42 years after launch, the spacecrafts are still alive and are now 145 times as far away from the sun as the Earth is, and have become the most distant human artifacts. They are our messengers to interstellar space. In 2012, and 2018, they crossed the boundary of the solar system, the heliopause, and crossed into what we call interstellar space. Now, one of the explicit aims of the Shaw Prize is to recognize advances that have enriched humanity's spiritual civilization. I believe Voyager has achieved this goal in an absolute spectacular way. Each spacecraft carries a golden record containing sounds and images selected to portray the diversity of life and culture on Earth for whoever is out there and might find them. In 1990, Voyager 1 looked back to take a very famous family portrait of Earth known as the pale blue dot, which became a symbol for how small we in our local area are in the larger universe. The mission is unparalleled in its duration and its unique science it has returned. The story of the researchers who developed and devoted their entire careers to Voyager resonates strongly with a wide audience. Now, the dominant figure of this wonderful mission, this milestone mission, was and still is Edward C. Stone. He has served as the project scientist since 1972, 45 years, and is principal investigator of one of the spacecraft's 11 instruments. His far-ranging contributions to and leadership of this really epochal space mission make Professor Stone an excellent recipient of the 2019 Shaw Prize in Astronomy. Ed, it's my pleasure.
Thank you, Professor Genzel, and please take your seat.
We now invite the chairman of the selection committee for the Shaw Prize in Life Science and Medicine, Professor Randy W. Schekman, to deliver a speech. Professor Schekman, please.
Governor Lamb, distinguished guests, and honored laureates. Molecular biologists have long dreamed of the possibility of treating genetic diseases by correcting mistakes in the genome. After many decades of work in genetic engineering, we now have the prospect of precise genome editing tools. You've heard of the current CRISPR revolution, which involves the application of a DNA breaking enzyme that can be tailored to identify specific chromosomal DNA sequences that may be clipped and then repaired. In the near future, it will be possible to treat human and animal genetic diseases and to improve agricultural productivity by the introduction of specific changes at precise locations within chromosomes. The history of the discoveries that have given us this exciting prospect stretch back over 25 years to basic work in the mechanism of chromosome recombination in simple organisms such as baker's yeast. Yeast geneticists discovered that genome recombination involved the introduction of breaks in the two strands of DNA, followed by pairing of homologous sequences between the chromosomes to generate genetic diversity. Knowledge of this requirement allowed Rodney Rostein's laboratory, and Dr. Rostein is here with us to help the celebration, to design an elegant approach to targeting genes in yeast, a tool that permitted many genetic experiments to test gene function in living yeast cells. Maria Jasin's interest in gene editing began when she was a graduate student at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where she made her first gene deletion in the bacterium E. coli using homologous recombination. During her postdoctoral studies in Zurich and then at Stanford University, Jasin took the bold step of studying gene editing and homologous recombination in mammalian cells, using methods similar to those that had been developed in yeast. These methods showed that the introduction of a double-strand break into a DNA molecule outside of the chromosome greatly stimulated its integration at the homologous site in the genome. The problem in mammalian cells was that even though accurate recombination could be achieved, it occurred in a very small fraction of cells against a background of non-specific interactions. Jasin's breakthrough was to take the model for double-strand break repair developed in yeast and make the model work in mammalian cells. In 1994, Jasin's laboratory exploited an ingenious method to create a double-strand break in the mouse genome. To do this, she used a specialized DNA breaking enzyme from yeast that had been well characterized by its recognition sequence. The gene encoding the yeast enzyme was introduced into the mouse genome, and the companion recognition sequence was genetically engineered into another mouse gene. Using this strategy, Jasin performed the first specific genome editing and, most importantly, She showed that introduction of site-specific double-strand breaks into the genome of mammalian cells produced a 1,000-fold increase in the targeting of a homologous DNA fragment to that site. This groundbreaking work laid the foundation for all subsequent genome editing studies, because now it was clear that a double-strand break is the critical step in gene targeting for this form of recombination. Now, using the methods developed in her lab and now applied worldwide, Dr. Jasin also discovered that the two major familial breast and ovarian tumor suppressor genes, BRCA1 and BRCA2, which we celebrated last year with an award to Dr. Mary Claire King, are required for homologous recombination, a finding that explained how the loss of either of these two genes increases the frequency of potentially carcinogenic genetic alterations. The importance of these results cannot be overstated, and they are being exploited in novel therapies for the treatment of breast, ovarian, and other cancers with BRCA1 and 2 mutations, and potentially cancers with mutations in other homologous recombination genes. Maria Jasin's research has contributed to the textbook view of how cells survive breaks in their chromosome, which is critical for the life of all cells. The Shaw Life Science Committee is particularly delighted this evening to recognize Dr. Jasin as the key pioneer in the revolutionary area of genome editing. Congratulations, Dr. Jasin.
Thank you, Professor Schekman, and kindly take your seat.
We invite Professor Timothy Gowers, Chairman of the Selection Committee for the Shaw Prize in Mathematical Sciences, to deliver a speech. Professor Gowers, please.
Michel Talagrand is a very unusual mathematician. Of course, everybody who wins the Shaw Prize is unusual. When I make this statement, I'm talking about his style more than about the quality of his mathematical achievements. If I had to sum up this style in one word, it would be tenacious. Once he bites, he does not let go. The following story gives an idea of what I mean. In the 1970s, as a graduate student of the famous French mathematician Gustave Choquet, he was given a problem to work on called Maharam's problem, which was posed in 1947. This was a rather basic question in an area of mathematics called measure theory, which deals with notions of size, and it remained stubbornly open. He failed to solve the problem and moved on to other topics where he had spectacular success. But he did not let go. 30 years later, he had a little idea which made him think that he might be able to produce a counterexample to the statement he had earlier tried to prove. And in 2006, he did indeed manage to do this using an extremely delicate construction. As it happened, 2006 was the year of Choquet's death. I hope he lived long enough to hear about the solution, but I don't actually know. The resulting paper was published in the Annals of Mathematics, which is widely regarded as the top journal in our discipline, and it would be a career highlight for most mathematicians. But Michel Talagrand has several even more remarkable achievements, and those are the ones for which the prize is awarded. They are also extremely varied. The phrase, the geometry of probability, is perhaps the best one can do if one wishes to identify a unifying theme. To a non-mathematician, it will not be at all obvious what such a phrase could mean. What has geometry got to do with probability? But there are, in fact, deep connections between questions in advanced probability and more geometric questions about high-dimensional spaces. And Michel Talagrand has revolutionized our understanding of these connections. Another unusual aspect of his work that illustrates his tenacity is that when he has solved a problem, he does not just set it aside and move on to other questions, as many other mathematicians do. He is not satisfied until he has truly understood the solution and worked it into a general method that other mathematicians can use. This characteristic has made his work even more influential. In particular, it has led him to write 3 major books that are essential to the research of many younger mathematicians today. One final aspect of his career that is more unusual now than it used to be is that nearly all his major work has been singly authored. I like to think that this has enabled him to explore radically new directions rather than getting stuck at the same barriers that have impeded other mathematicians. I would like to finish by quoting from a review of one of his revolutionary papers, and the review is itself quite unusual. It starts, "In this major article, the author proves the Parisi formula." The review could actually stop here. First, the Parisi formula is the most celebrated, long-standing open problem in the area of spin glasses. Second, the proof presented in the article is self-contained so that, as stressed by the author, its reading does not require any knowledge concerning the underlying physics. Third, a short history of the problem, ideas, and developments over the past decades is nevertheless provided for the reader's convenience or curiosity, so that the interested reader should really download the paper. I hope I've managed to convey to you how Michel Talagrand is truly a one-off and why he is a wonderfully appropriate winner of the Shaw Prize in Mathematics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Gowers.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're much honored to have the Honourable Mrs. Carrie Lam, Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China, to officiate at the presentation ceremony.
We now invite Mrs. Lam to present the prizes to the Shaw Laureates 2019. Mrs. Lam, please.
First, we will present the Shaw Prize in Astronomy 2019. The award goes to Professor Edward C. Stone.
When I look at the sky, I think of where do we go next? The frontiers out there are immense. We are never going to visit it all.
We would like to invite Professor Edward C. Stone to deliver his acceptance speech. Professor Stone, please.
Chief Executive, Mrs. Carrie Lam, colleagues, and celebrators of science. It's a great honor to receive the Shaw Prize in Astronomy for my leadership in the Voyager mission. I'm deeply grateful to the Shaw Prize Foundation Council, its Board of Adjudicators, and its selection committees for this extraordinary recognition. It was nearly 50 years ago, 1972, when I was asked to divide my time between Caltech as an associate professor of physics and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where I was to become the chief scientist of a new mission that NASA was going to be sending to the outer planets and beyond, called Voyager. Little could I have predicted that in 42 years after the twin Voyager probes were launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida, that I would remain my privilege to helm this remarkable project and to work alongside a most extraordinary team of scientists and engineers on what has been a truly unprecedented journey. But then Voyager has always exceeded expectations, reminding us that no matter what we think we know, we will know much more tomorrow. From the surprising discovery of volcanoes on Io, Jupiter's moon Io, to a storm on Neptune, which has the fastest wind speeds in the solar system, Voyager has shown us time after time that nature is more inventive than the human mind in terms of processes that form planets. The Voyager's probes are also outstand as expiring examples of human ingenuity. Both have crossed the heliopause and entered interstellar space. and they have ventured farther from Earth than any other human-made object, and they're still traveling. Sometime over the next several years, when they no longer have enough electrical power, the Voyager spacecraft will go dark. I'm often asked, will it be sad when Voyager's last signal fades away? I'm confident that on that inevitable day, that I will feel only gratitude for more than 40 years of exploration and humility in the knowledge that the Voyagers sail on in the Milky Way galaxy as silent ambassadors of the distant planet Earth. And so, in the spirit of unending discovery, I humbly accept this prize on behalf of all those who worked on and who have been inspired by the Voyager mission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Stone. Please take your seat on stage.
Now comes the Shaw Prize in Life Science and Medicine 2019. The award goes to Professor Maria Jasin.
I would like to continue making scientific discoveries. You know something about nature that nobody knew before.
We now invite Professor Maria Jasin to deliver her acceptance speech. Professor Jasin, please.
I must first thank the Shaw Foundation, and particularly the members of the Life Sciences and Medicine Selection Committee, including Randy Schekman, for this extraordinary honor. I also want to thank the Shaw Secretariat and members of the Shaw Group for their efforts in taking such wonderful care of us, and my special guests who have traveled so far to come here tonight from different parts of the world, including my sister Joanne from the state of Florida in the US. We often hear how difficult a career in science is, the difficulties in obtaining sufficient funding, tussles with journal editors, droughts between major scientific discoveries. However, scientists are truly privileged people. We are able to spend our lives making new discoveries in nature and are sometimes able to envision the future of scientific discovery and medical breakthroughs. I have been very fortunate, starting from the very beginning with the immigration of my parents to a relatively safe and stable country, but particularly in this regard for my graduate and postgraduate studies in stimulating laboratories and universities, and continuing my independent scientific career to follow my own path to discovery. My aspiration as a young scientist was to be able to modify the genome at will. This vision involved damaging the genome in order to modify it, a seemingly risky endeavor, but one my colleague Scott Keeney, who is here tonight, is familiar with from studies of genome transmission. Yes, the cell damages, actually breaks its own genome in hundreds of locations to start the process of dividing its genome into two so that sperm and egg can form for reproduction. Why not put a break into the genome of cells then to either mutate it to study gene function or to correct gene mutations? I was astounded at how well this worked. The joy of that discovery remains with me today, 25 years later. That first experiment showed the way forward. That's all we need to do, break the genome, and we can modify the genome at will. There was just one problem, a big problem, how to break the genome exactly where we want. That took several years and investigators to sort out. In the end, it was chance discovery from plant pathogens of easily programmable DNA-binding proteins and from bacteria of adaptive immunity. The miracle of science, bacteria can adapt a rudimentary immune system based on viruses it is exposed to protect itself. And this bacterial immune system can be adapted to transform biomedical research and clinical practice. I started graduate studies in the era of recombinant DNA research, following the era of nucleic acids research, including the solution of the structure of DNA. We thought that was a golden era of research and wondered whether the excitement could be sustained. But now things are just as exciting in this current golden era of molecular genetics. Scientific creativity at its best, figuring out how social behavior works in ants, or the molecular logic of color vision in butterflies, and the promise of transformative disease treatments, advancing immunotherapies for tumor rejection, and curing blood disorders. Science at its best, yet also the Frankensteinian can arise if we are not careful. How do we prevent this? With a scientifically literate populace, ethically trained specialists, wise government policies. We will see how it all unfolds, but we must work towards realizing these goals. My heartfelt gratitude to you all for this award. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jasin, and please return to your seat on stage.
Lastly, we will present the Shaw Prize in Mathematical Sciences 2019. The award goes to Dr. Michel Talagrand.
I took the books and I solved the problems. You train yourself, it becomes easy. You start to see the beauty and the challenge and the complexity.
We now invite Dr. Michel Talagrand to deliver his acceptance speech. Dr. Talagrand, please.
Honourable Chief Executive, member of the Shaw Prize Council and Selection Committee, ladies and gentlemen, it is an immense and unexpected honor for me to receive the Shaw Prize today. In the long chain of extremely unlikely events which brought me here, Hong Kong played a small but crucial part. The luckiest event in my life is to have met in Kent, Ohio, a stupendous PhD student who instantly captured my heart to this day. I proposed to her after 3 days. "You are crazy," she said. I followed her to Korea. She sent me back to France with a broken heart. On the way home, I stopped over in Hong Kong. I had the address of a fantastic wholesaler. I bought her as a parting gift the best necklace I could afford. This unselfish deed moved her, and the story continued. Her father was a well-known scholar in Korea and had raised his children in the belief that scholarly achievement is the greatest value in life. I have often wondered if this belief had more to do with her decision to share my life than my good looks. Despite having a full professional life, she has been extremely supportive. I never heard the words I dreaded the most: "Now is not the time to work." This doesn't mean that I didn't see my family. The secret of success in mathematics is to work every day until exhaustion, but not more. Do not believe her when she says I devoted 99% of my life to mathematics and 1% to her. She got at least 2%. Having the perfect spouse, all the rest was easy. I wish I could say I had a grand vision of mathematics, but the reality is very different. I simply tried to solve problems which came my way, always attempting to go to the bottom of things. I did not work on fashionable areas, but I focused on simple universal structure because there lay important questions. I owe a great debt to Gilles Pizier, Vitaly Milman, and others who introduced me to the areas where I became the most successful. Modern science is like a magnificent temple in perpetual construction. I'm so glad I could contribute a tiny little brick to its foundation. Thank you so much.
We now invite Mrs. Lam to take a photo with our laureates. Ladies and gentlemen, the Shaw Prize Award Presentation Ceremony 2019 has now come to a successful conclusion. We have specially prepared souvenirs to commemorate the occasion. Please do feel free to take one set before you leave.
And we would like to invite all Shaw laureates, their family members and friends to stay behind for a stage photo session.
Scientific research has embedded boundless possibilities. We look forward to recognizing more outstanding scientific research achievements in the Shaw Prize Award Presentation Ceremony. Goodbye and see you next year.
Thank you. Goodbye.